Welcome everyone to this lecture on the count function. The count function returns the number of input rows that match a specific condition of a query. We can apply count on a specific column or just pass count and then an asterisk. We will soon see this should return the same result because count is merely reporting back the number of rows returned, which is going to be the same regardless of what actual column you're looking at. Let's see a simple example. Here again we have that table with a couple of names and then their color choice. Let's imagine we called select count name from table. Notice here count does need the parentheses because it's a function acting on something. So it won't work without the parentheses. Keep that in mind. If we were to count the number of names from table, that's just asking for how many rows are there in the name column, which is going to be 4. So the result will be count 4. So again, it's simply returning the number of rows in the table. In fact, this should really be the same regardless of the column we call, because each column has the same number of rows since they're literally in the same table. Which is why, whether you call select count name from table, select count choice from table, or select count asterisk, which is just saying select the count of all the rows for all the columns in the table, they should all return the same thing. Since the original table has 4 rows, that means each column has 4 rows, which is why you usually just see an asterisk from the table. Now keep in mind, it's sometimes useful to use a column name instead of just providing an asterisk, because if you come back on your SQL query sometime later, it may actually help kind of stir the memory of what actual question you were trying to answer. So again, because of this, count by itself simply returns back a count of the number of rows in a table. And count is usually much more useful when combined with other commands, such as the distinct command that we already learned about. Imagine we wanted to know how many unique names are there in the table. So, to answer this question, we need to first decide the distinct number of names. Then we'll provide count on that result of distinct name from table. So the logic that's going to happen is distinct is going to figure out what the distinct names are. Here it sees that David is duplicated, so it's just going to kind of remove that, and now we have the 3 unique names, and then count is going to count the remaining rows here, which in this case is going to be 3 rows. So the end result for select count distinct name from table is 3, answering the question that there are 3 unique names in the table. It won't tell you what those names are, that would just be a distinct call by itself. And again, notice the parentheses structure here. It's informing us that we are calling count on the result of distinct name. If you want, you can also provide parentheses for name on distinct, although that's not necessary as we previously discussed. However, some people find this result more readable. Let's go ahead and explore some examples in pgadmin. Okay, here I am at the query editor in pgadmin. Let's select everything from the payment table just so we can take a look at it. So we'll say select everything from payment, and I can see there's a payment ID, customer ID, staff ID, etc. There's also an amount and a payment date. Let's imagine I just wanted to know the number of rows that are in this table. Now, luckily for us, this table is pretty small, which means I could, if I wanted to, scroll all the way down and then check the actual, here on the left-hand column, it's just a count. So I could scroll all the way down and eventually I would see the correct answer. However, this is actually quite a large table. There's more than 1,000 entries. In a realistic database, you're going to have very, very large tables. So you're not going to be able to just scroll down just to see how many rows there are in this table. So one easy way to do this is just say select count, and then to make it easier to read, I'll pass in the parentheses, and it just is asking count the number of rows in all the columns. So those should all be the same, which means it's going to be 14,596 rows. So much easier to do that than scroll down until you see 14,596. And you could do this for essentially any column. So if I pass in the, let's say, amount column, again, this is just asking how many rows are there in the amount column. Well, it should be the same as the number of rows in the actual table. So notice we get back the exact same result. So when people are beginning to learn about SQL, they sometimes get confused over what column we're going to pass into count, and in the end, it really doesn't matter. It's really probably most common to see an asterisk since, again, it doesn't matter. But sometimes it might be easier to use a column name in order to set your mindset as far as what you were thinking when you were writing this query. So if you come back later in time and you would see this query, you can see that you were probably thinking about the amount column because somebody asked you a specific question of it. So keep that in mind. It might be easier for you to actually clarify with a column name. Okay, now let's go ahead and say, just select the amount column from payment, run this, and I can see there's different amounts that people are paying: $7.99, $1.99, $2.99, $5.99, etc. Let's imagine I wanted to figure out the actual number of payment types. What are the actual number of unique amounts or distinct amounts being paid? If I were to just use distinct on the amount column, I would run this and it shows me the distinct values: $1.99, $10.99, $2.99, etc. Essentially removing any duplicates. So this answers the question, what are the unique payment amounts? However, my question is, how many unique amounts are there? Which means I should be counting the result of this. So one way I could do that is scroll all the way down and realize there's 19 rows here. Or to do this programmatically, I would just say count distinct amount. I run this, and notice here, when I'm using these two functions, I will need to specify with parentheses. So I'll say count distinct amount, and then it actually ends up working. So the reason in this case that I need to use parentheses is because if I don't, PostgreSQL is going to think that I'm trying to call count on some distinct column, which doesn't exist. So this is why I need to call parentheses and specify that distinct amount should happen first before I call count on whatever this result is. And if you want, you can add in another set of parentheses just to make it more readable for you. It really depends on your personal style. And we'll get back the same result. Okay, so that's it for learning about count. Coming up next, we're going to learn about the select where statement, which is really going to help us out in a lot of different query types. I'll see you there.